Hello. Let's do Legendary White Science 2. I just posted my Prometheum Science video yesterday, and today it's going to be Legendary White Science. And after that, I'm going to go into redesigning all of the novice sciences. So there's going to be a lot of details on that one about, inserter clocking and various small details about how to, mainly how to do this kind of thing, where I have something here that works quite nicely with clocking, but all the details of whether doing something different with the belts and stuff is better. Now, there are some things about white science that are the same in Prometheum. For example, I am clocking the asteroid collectors, which helps with UPS. It's not quite as important for white science, but I explain it more in the Prometheum video, so if you want a further explanation, go there. I also won't be talking that much about asteroid UPS. I also explained that in the Prometheum video, so go there for that, and also general stuff about the UPS cost of spaceships. They've kind of been covered there. Now, specifically for white science, I do know from SF Hobbit, he did some tests between normal quality and legendary quality. And from his test that he did like quite a few months ago, it seemed pretty clear to me that legendary quality is better for UPS, even just the spaceships themselves, let alone the extra benefit of, well, I don't have a novice, this is the editor, but the extra benefit of having to deal with less bottles or science packs to insert out of the hub, and however you handle them after they drop on the hub. So I'm also somewhat convinced that, I'm pretty convinced that legendary is better than common quality, but I'm also kind of convinced that it's better than any other kind of quality choice you can make, such as maybe you would do Epic Plus or, Rare Plus, or you do some other combination. The reason is that when you reprocess asteroids, you have 80% chance of the asteroid surviving, moving to the next quality tier. And I think on average, from a common quality asteroid, you have 2% chance to go up all the way to legendary. I think 2.1% chance, something like that. If you just, actually, no matter what, it's 2.1% chance. This is very different from recycling, where it's, you have 4 modules, but you have 25% chance to lose the asteroid or whatever you're reprocessing, recycling, instead of 20. Yeah, sorry, you have 25% chance to keep it instead of 80%. So this is why I'm doubtful. I haven't done the math or actually tested it, but I think probably legendary quality is going to be the way to go. Also, it's much easier to handle logistically having either, one type of quality. So if you're gonna have one, it's usually better to either keep it at normal or go all the way to legendary, especially with asteroids. For other stuff, you can recycle the, if you do uncommon only, then you can recycle the higher ones, because you delete them quickly anyway. I guess here it's even better because you can throw them overboard. So that kind of covers why I went for legendary. So the main thing that I have done that I haven't seen other people do, or not quite as much, has to do with actually writing code. But to start with, I have to go to the Reddit post, which I also mentioned. I mentioned on my Prometheum Science video. And it's about how do asteroids spawn. It's a somewhat lengthy post. You can see it here, or just go to the link. I've linked it in the Prometheum Science video. And the link that I have shown also has some comments, questions that I had to the original poster. But anyway, the TLDR for this video is that there is one of these links, this link. In this link, you can go, for example, let's say from Novice to Gleba and go here, and this is what I've done. And you can go, you can see these numbers which say, for example, for carbonic asteroid chunk, at distance 0.1, and I'll show you what that means. So I did Novice to Gleba, right? So carbonic asteroid chunk at 0.1, the probability is this. The speed is always the same. I don't know what this means, but yeah, the probability is this. And then at 0.9, it's this, which is lower. So for carbonic chunk, it goes up to here. Now, how do you translate this probability to this number? You need to go into the post and read about it in order to understand. But this data that comes from, you know, I guess Factorio somehow, it gives you this number specifically in order to make these graphs. So basically, I've taken these numbers or these graphs and written some of my own code. And these are kind of the numbers. So Novice to Volcanus, Novice to Gleba, Novice to Fulgora, Volcanus to Gleba, and Gleba to Fulgora. And also the spawning rates when you are on certain planets for for the various asteroids that can spawn. So between these 3 planets, or 4 planets rather, you only get chunks or medium asteroids, which each of them turn into 6 chunks. Now, I didn't consider any routes that go to a kilo or beyond a kilo because they seem to not be necessary anyway. Like, as you see, a bit of a spoiler, but it goes between Novice and Fulgora. So, based on this, if I run it, and also scroll a bit for you guys to see the code if you're interested, but it's nothing too complex. It's just a bit of annoying code, but basically it translates this code into how many chunks of it you would get, at least comparatively. So you end up with these results, which say that, maybe I can make them bigger. I'll just take a screenshot, I guess. So these are the results that you get. So while you're idling on Novice, this exactly doesn't mean anything, but it's more like comparatively to each other. So you'll get 3 metallic for every 1 oxide chunk, and 2 carbonic for every 1 oxide chunk. So these numbers, you should only see them in relation to each other rather than trying to think what does 45 mean. But the important one are the routes, right? And there was a very clear winner here, which was Novice to Fulgora, because you get the most chunks overall, and you get the most oxide asteroids overall as well, which, as you'll see soon afterwards, this is a bottleneck for space science. And on top of that, it's actually something that goes back and forth from Novice, so that also helps with the design of the spaceship. Because if it was one of these 2, Volcanus to Gleba or Gleba to Fulgora, that would have been kind of a pain, because yeah, you need some kind of interrupt in here to say, oh, okay, I've gathered enough, go back to Novice, stop doing this route. So that was lucky. So this is why I'm going between Novice and Fulgora, because for the same route I'm getting more asteroids and more of the asteroid that is a bottleneck. Okay, so that's how it chose the route. Now, something that happens is that most people use the there are 2 recipes, right? Or 3 recipes per asteroid. For metallic, there's this one, and this one. Now, this is what most people use. They use these 3 recipes, and it makes sense because you get 80% chance to get back the asteroid. But when you get asteroid, why do I have a 31? Anyway, it's the editor. Once you get this to level 30, you can obviously use these recipes as well. And with 300% bonus productivity, it's the same. You have 80% chance to keep the asteroid chunk, but it's first of all, guaranteed to be at least the same type, even if it's higher quality or the same. So that's one of the effects. And the second effect is you also get some of the product as well. So, maybe I get some legendary iron ore, which I can then use. So that got me to think, well, okay, should I use this recipe or this recipe, and at which quality levels? So when when I have some uncommon metallic asteroid chunks, should I use this recipe to turn them to rare and higher, or should I use this recipe? So that was one of the questions, but first I think we need to go and see the actual numbers, which was going to help. So I am aiming for 640 white science per second. Why is that? Because white science is basically a multiplier of 6. So in terms of common science, that's 3,840, and in terms of belts, that's 32 lanes of belt, and that's basically 4 million SPM if your research productivity is around 75. Mine is way above that now, but yeah, most people seem to stop playing around that time. So by the time I finish my playthrough, this is probably enough for 5 million SPM. But anyway, I aimed for 640 per second. Now in practice, because you need to buffer, you can't have this work non-stop. So when I designed my ship, I saw that for 640 per second, I couldn't do it with four of these. I needed more, so I ended up with 5 of these fully beaconed. So that ends up being 689.1 per second, and that means on each belt I get 230 per second, which is below the 240, that is the maximum. So, just to have this blueprint do a bit more, but also look nice, I went for the actual max production is 690 per second. And now from that, we can find out how much we need of each ingredient. So the recipe gives me 5 for every craft, but because of 100% extra prod from the prod modules, it's actually 10. So it's a nice 1:10 ratio. So for 689.1, we need 68.9 ice and carbon. And we need 2 iron plates, so double that, which is 137.8. And the furnaces that turn iron ore to iron plates have 50% bonus productivity, so we divide by 1.5, and that gives me how much I need of each of them. Now we need to translate that back to asteroids, and I won't bore you with the math. You can do it yourselves as well if you want. It's I mean, you're using the normal recipes, right? You use this, but with 300% productivity. So, how many oxides do I need to get the ice and stuff? And it turns out these are the ratios that you need. And, I need 0.7 per second, 0.35 per second. I actually wonder what's going to show under legendary. Oops. Yeah, because they kind of recycle themselves, so you can't, like, these numbers are not going to be the same. These are way higher. Because this 0.7 is basically, this does not take into account the extra ones I get from this loop. It takes into account what comes out of the rest of all of this, plus from the reprocessing if I have too much of one and not enough of some other. So these are the ratios. Well, if you remember what we got in MATLAB, they're actually kind of reverse. You get so you kind of need, for every 3 oxides at legendary, you need 1 metallic, and for every 2 oxides you need 1 carbonic, but it's actually the other way around at normal quality, what you gather. And these are the same numbers for novice to fulgora. that you saw earlier, but then I scale them up because they're kind of relative anyway. So this is what you get. For every 100 oxides, you will get 245 carbonic and 345 metallic. And then from those and from the code, I also checked what ratios of medium asteroids I can expect, because, hold on. Because I can't see how many chunks I'm actually collecting, but I can see how many mediums I'm destroying. So these are kind of the theoretical ones that are, in between. The ratio should be correct. And then I did a preliminary test of between these three. This is how much I actually got, which it's a bit below because now it stops on, because my ship actually stops on Novi sometimes, but the ratios should be the same. So you can see the ratios are kind of similar, 50, 60, 133, a bit more, 158, and 183 to 190. But anyway, so these are the theoretical ones, or the ones given by the, the code of Factorio. This is what I got in practice from doing a couple of test runs. And then from translating from these to these, I can also do the reverse, translating from these to these. How much I can expect to get per minute in terms of chunks, and then how many chunks I'm actually expecting per second. Okay. Now, something you may or may not know is that when you reprocess, like for example on the ship that I have for asteroid reprocessing, just to get legendary items in general, I just use the reprocessing recipe everywhere, except at the very end, and you get some legendary stuff. So if you do the math, you would find out that basically no matter what you start with, what kind of asteroids you start with, by the end you kind of have an equal chance of getting any of the three, right? So if I use the reprocessing recipes everywhere, if I use these three at every quality level, then kind of the ratio between the asteroids would be basically equal. But I don't want it equal. I want more oxides. So if you do that, which is what most people do, then you end up reprocessing a lot at the legendary, when they're already legendary. But that means every time you do that, not only are you getting back what you already had half the time, which is what you don't want, you want to change to the other two, there's also 20% chance of it getting deleted every time you roll the dice. So basically you have, I guess, 20% chance it gets deleted, and then 40% chance you need to roll again and potentially get deleted again, and then 50% chance you get hopefully what you want. You may want one or the other, I don't know. So the whole point is, whenever you're using this, you're basically destroying asteroids. You're losing efficiency in terms of asteroids. So you've gone through all this process, paid all of the UPS cost of going through all of this, only to have a decent chance of losing it because you didn't get the correct ratios. But like I said, these recipes, they only return the same asteroid with 80% chance to keep the asteroid, but always of the same type, right? But only if you have 300% prod. I know I'm sometimes being repetitive, but anyway, people have complained about that. So the question is, can I use these recipes at certain key moments and basically get more efficiency for every asteroid I collect and goes through the whole process? The idea is, can I get to this ratio naturally without having to change them around when they're at the legendary level? Because then I'm not wasting it. On top of that, I can also get some, if I also get some ice from this recipe that's already legendary, that's some supplemental ice, why not? So that was the main idea. Now, this is why I wrote another piece of code, which is a bit longer, but it's basically, it just goes through, there are 4,096 cases of what you can do, and it goes through all of them, and it spits at the end the best ones. That's it. I think after that, yeah, that's it. So first it does the upcycling. I think here it does the upcycling, basically, and then at the end it tries to. It basically does this because yeah, at the end it's not like you got something and then you need to also reprocess to the correct ratios. So if I run this piece of code, it gives me a bunch of results, and I think this was the best one over here. So this number tells me the higher the better. It just means I'm getting more asteroids, more legendary asteroids, basically at the correct ratios. Hopefully that's big enough for you guys to see. I think it is. And what this matrix tells me is that the first column is what I do with metallic asteroids, the second is for carbonic, and the third is for ice, oxide asteroids. And basically, if it's a 1, it means, the first row is for what do I do at common quality, at uncommon, at rare, and at epic. So for example, these two, which is for carbonic at uncommon, since it was a 1, it means that for carbonic at uncommon, I'm going to use this recipe. If it was a 0, I'd be using this recipe. That's what it means. So another example, let's just take this one. This is for metallic at epic, and it doesn't use these recipes, so it's this one. Now, as you see, it actually uses the normal recipe, not the reprocessing one, quite often. And one of the biggest problems was it was doing this for metallic asteroids. Now, I actually do use this, but not at normal quality, but at rare quality. Now, the problem with metallic asteroids is that, okay, well, you're getting a lot of iron ore. And in case you guys don't remember, the metallic gives you 20 iron ore per craft, the ice 5 ice only, and the carbonic 10 carbon. So in order for them to not get stuck, you need 2 inserters first of all, and even that is not enough sometimes when the productivity and the normal craft line up, because you get 40 at the same time. So you will need 3, and they will need to be stack inserters, but stack inserters can also get stuck. I know. Okay. Yeah, so the problem with this recipe is if I do it at a normal quality, that's a lot of iron to get rid of. So you might say, well, what's the UPS effect of that? And I never actually tested what's the UPS effect. But in principle, if you compare the two recipes, you have an inserter inserting 1 chunk, and then you have, on average, 80% of the time, 1 outsertion of a chunk in both cases. So this has extra having to deal with iron ore, which is quite a bit of outserting. And like I said in my Prometheum video, getting rid of stuff by throwing it in the space is actually the most efficient way to get rid of anything. And it's much better than recycling or anything else. It's almost as good as putting something into a chest. Still, that's a lot of extra inserter swings if I were to do it at common quality. So that's what led me to think, okay, well, maybe I can do something that's not quite as efficient, but doesn't have the UPS issues. And going back to the code, First of all, I want to run it specifically for oops. This is what you get when you do what most people do, where you do only reprocessing and then you change around the asteroids here. So you end up with a value of 6.8, which doesn't tell you much, but you need to compare that value to what you get in other cases. So in this ideal case, in terms of like asteroid efficiency, you get 7.866. So I think I've actually saved these numbers down here, yeah. So this is the best case in terms of asteroid efficiency, and this is what you get with pure reprocessing. I guess this doesn't fit on my screen. So by changing to the ideal solution, you get 15% more asteroids, more production of legendary asteroids at the correct ratios. 15.6, whatever. Yeah, going back. So here, instead of just showing the best solution, I show like the best 10 solutions. And the one that personally caught my eye was, let me find it, this one. So this one has an efficiency of 7.84 instead of 7.86. And you only do metallic reprocessing at rare quality and also ice. And then at epic quality, you do carbonic and ice again. So in terms of efficiency of legendary items, I can divide again. And in this case, we get 15.2%. So basically the same efficiency as the best solution. And this is what I've ended up using. Sorry about the double. Yeah, you've probably been seeing this for a while. So yeah, like I said, I have at epic quality, at rare quality, I do metallic with a normal recipe, and also oxides with a normal recipe. And then at epic quality, I do carbonic with a normal recipe, and again oxide. And as you see, these almost never get used. Like, what do I have here? 200 products, 4,000 products after however long this has been running, and 1,700 products. And here, for comparison, I have like 48,000 products, 17,000, 17, 60,000, 130,000, 200,000. Yeah. So you can see, like, I very rarely need to change legendary asteroids into one another. They naturally go towards the correct ratios through this processing on their own. Now, this was the big difference that I've done. In a way, this was the entire video. The meaningful differences, using some code and, keeping it to some cleverly choosing not the best solution, but a solution that also doesn't impact UPS that much. And I'm pretty sure the 15% extra efficiency here is worth the UPS cost of tossing a bunch of asteroids, a bunch of iron ore overboard. Also, my code didn't take into account because I get also some the stuff that comes through this belt. That's the extra legendary carbon and ice that I get, which is free, and I didn't take that into account. So actually, I have even more efficiency than I said in terms of the asteroids. So one improvement could be to take that into account in the code as well, but that's also kind of tricky because what are you gonna keep? So I chose when it came to the metallic and the iron ore, because it's at rare quality, I decided I'm just gonna toss everything overboard. The chance of getting legendary is only like, what is it? You have like 12%. It's like 1% chance to get legendary iron ore, and it's the one you need the least amount of. And there's not enough inserters here to remove it and keep this functioning almost all the time. But here I decided to keep the legendary ice at rare quality and at epic quality, obviously. And here, same thing. Beyond that, this is the main thing about getting this to work. Beyond that, there are a bunch of details. The biggest issue with designing this is basically you need to, you can get lucky or unlucky and get too many asteroids, because in theory from one asteroid this can spawn up to 3 asteroids, this recipe. And this recipe from 1 you can get up to 4, although they're all gonna be metallic. But basically the problem is the belt buffers can easily like get full and then get stuck. So designing this as small as possible without getting the belt buffers to get stuck is the main challenge of designing the ship. Whatever I've done here, the main thing you can do is at least feedback the same quality. So for example here, the ice comes through here. I should do this crosshair. I noticed on my Promethean video it's really hard to see my crosshair. Sometimes even I struggle to see my crosshair. I need to make it bigger or something in general. I also noticed that the quality was kind of shit, and I think that's because now I have a 2K monitor. So I'm recording at 2K, but then downscaling to 1080p, and for some reason that's not good enough, even though my settings. Yeah, I don't know. If someone has suggestions on OBS what settings to do to have really good quality, I don't mind if the file that comes out is big or it takes a long time to upload. Just tell me what settings to to use. Anyway, so the ice comes through, gets picked up through the undergrounds all the way to the end, and then here it comes on the bottom side of the lanes, comes through, then the top side goes through this thing, and then the ones outsert like this onto the green belt going to the right, but on over here. So they combine with the stuff at the top, which actually I don't even know if I have anything at the top. Yeah, I actually shouldn't have anything on the top, so I guess this isn't strictly needed, but yeah, I guess this. Oh wait, it is needed because sorry, it's not to put the stuff out from the top. It's actually to block the stuff at the bottom. But I guess technically this doesn't do anything. It does in some other cases, but I think this isn't needed whatsoever. I could just have it like that, and then just have it like that. So there you go. So, by the way, okay. So then I take back the ones that are the same, the normal quality oxides, feed them back, and then I make sure through this that they're prioritized higher than whatever comes before. In general, the one of the main concepts you need is for something to feed back itself the asteroids that it uses with the highest priority. That's the first concept in order to avoid blockages. And the second thing is always prioritize from the highest quality going backwards. So at legendary quality it doesn't exactly make sense, but I do have this through, I reprocess here, put the reprocess asteroids over here, and then here they have priority, as you see, over the ones coming from the epic stuff. Same idea with the epic. So when you're reprocessing at the epic quality, so these ones, and these ones, the output that, for example, goes over here and then gets fed through. Yeah, I mean, first of all, you can see again the epic metallics are again fed through here, and why did I do this? Am I stupid? Why do I even do that? Why not just do that? Okay, anyway. Yeah. So yeah, they need to be the highest priority when they feed back onto themselves, and then the rest of them go through and they join over here, and then they feed the other ones. So when it comes to the epic, I'm gonna say these are epic metallics. These, what comes to them, the highest priority should be their own self loop. Then it should be these ones. So if they, well, they can't make an, they can't make it because I am using this recipe. But you know, imagine they could, because imagine I was using the other recipe. So the second priority would be the epic ones that come from these guys, and then the third priority would be whatever comes from the rare, and then the fourth priority from this, and the fifth from that. Why is that? Because if eventually you have too many asteroids and you stop production or whatever, and it gets blocked, you want the legendary ones to get unblocked first, so that you continue production, and then you want the epic ones to get unblocked. But in order for them to get unblocked, you want the legendary ones to get unblocked first. Because if these are still blocked, how are they going to output the legendary asteroids? So yeah, in order for everything to unblock, you need to go backwards from the chain of production. This unblocks easily on its own, then you need this to unblock, then this, and then this, and then the uncommon and the common. Now, beyond that, you can still get blockages through what I said, the belt buffers and getting unlucky, especially at the common, because at the common I have like basically one belt for everything. There's not much you can do about that. If you're struggling, you just need more belt buffering, basically. If you can't think of anything else, you just need to get more buffer. That's it, and do things like what I've done here, snaking it around to make the buffer bigger. In theory, you can always get unlucky and get stuck, but, you know, in practice, it's fine. Okay. What else is there besides my shitty decisions over here? So apparently I could have made the ship even nicer. But anyway. I guess I don't need that either. Because that looks nicer too. Anyway. I can show you a bit the designs and talk about UPS. But I think all of the basics are there. Actually, yeah, before I go into details about UPS, I can just show the functionality, I guess. So in terms of UPS, I mean, now it's an overestimate because it also does all the idling. In practice, what I saw on my computer, the ship takes about 120 to 130 microseconds. And everything combined, all the legendary handling, which is dropping the cargo pods, outputting, and of course after that you need to insert them into the labs. I think legendary white science with this ship, probably 200 microseconds, 0.2 milliseconds total. Now, of course, this is 3, 5, 4 or whatever, but that's because Factorio also takes some. So in order to know how much it takes, you can run Factorio completely empty. So that's the first thing to see, like how much does Factorio take up on its own with a completely empty editor. The other thing you can do is have this system, but then just have something in orbit that just, you know, it doesn't do anything, it just drops white science on its own. So this didn't take that much, this only took like 20 microseconds from the testing that I did. So then you can want to compare that against what I have here with the ship running plus the fusion power cells. And then you get what's the difference. What does the one ship actually use over time? Let's see, what else? So some of the other stuff I did here because I had to build it gradually. I guess this is somewhat of a detail, but so if you remember, this is where we left off. How many asteroids I could expect. So this was the crusher throughput, which you'll see is much higher than these numbers, but that's because so basically I was getting every asteroid. I simulated getting all of these asteroids, and then I'm like, if I want to reprocess everything that I get, what's the throughput that I need? And these numbers are way higher than these ones because of the, because you have 80% chance of getting the asteroid back, right? Like on average, you're gonna get a lot of asteroids back. So you get one from the, you pick up one, but it actually turns out to be like 3 or 4 or 5 or something asteroids after all the reprocessing. So this tells you how many crushers you need, which you need to overdo how many you have and then see how many you actually need. I don't know if you can mathematically figure out how many you need. There's probably some way to do it, but anyway. And then based on these, I can see what throughput I need, and then based on the throughput, I can see how many machines I need. So I needed 20, obviously you need to round up, so I needed 26 crushers doing this recipe, and then 67 for this one, and blah blah blah. And then from those, then I can see how many, same idea, how many at uncommon quality do I get, and how many that's per second. But that's just when I reprocess them. That's not when I reprocess these back onto themselves. When I include that, then that's how many I get per minute and per second. And that gives me how many I need at that level. And then you repeat and repeat, and I ended up with these numbers. How many crashes I needed at this level. Now in practice, I didn't need, after I did all of that, I found out that I got more than enough throughput to have this work non-stop. So in theory, what I've done here, it has all the ice. So it has enough at each level except the common carbonic and metallic. There just wasn't enough room to do it properly as I would have liked ideally, but it works. I get more than enough. I do process most of them that come in, as you see, like the belts aren't getting full. So it works out fine. I ended up having to do one extra metallic here, but that's just how it worked out in practice, just because I didn't want to make the ship any bigger. Okay, beyond that I can go into a bit how some of the designs. So one thing I didn't like is what most people have done is they just combine, at the normal quality I do the processing everywhere, and they just combine it all into a belt that has kind of a loop and all that. And I don't like that because you cannot figure out exactly how many you need. It's a bit tricky. It's not necessarily worse, but it's a bit tricky to figure out how many you need. Some of them will not be working all the time. So for a given input, it's kind of weird, right? But if you do 2 at a time, then it's fine, because you can have on each side of the belt something. So here the belt goes through all the way, and then it loops back, and the belt actually ends here. Now this one doesn't have, I think, full throughput, but this one does. So you can see the belt here is full, and all of these are working basically all the time. Now, when you do it like this, instead of a sushi belt, one good thing that happens is you don't need to do anything with the inserters, like clocking or something. Because the belt is always full, they basically only pick up whenever they need to. They never activate at any other time. They always have something to pick up. They don't wait for the belt to move items. So automatically, in terms of UPS, this is ideal. Now, is it worth all of these extra transport lines? That's a different question, but regardless, that's how I managed to do it to not take too much space. Same with these inserters, they just outsert and it's fine. The same thing happens not for these. As you see, some of them aren't working. About half of them are working at any moment. But these ones are working all the time. So it's the same idea. They don't need any kind of circuitry in order for them to be UPS optimized at all, the inserters. Now for these ones, it also doesn't matter that much for this recipe, because the problem with the inserters, what actually happens is, I mean, let's go to the ground, right? The problem is, let's say I'm crafting, I don't know, iron gears, and I have an inserter like that and like that. So this one picks up 16 at a time, and this one wants to outsert 16 at a time, ideally, right? So every time it crafts, this one is checking, so I add more, and this one is checking, can I pick it? I need to pick up another one, and another one, another one. Well, that's not really a problem if you only pick up one and you only drop off one. So even in this case where these aren't working that much, I mean, okay, as the oxide is traveling, the one picking up will take a bit longer to, you know, it will be active a bit longer because it will activate a bit before the inserter can actually pick it up. But that's not such a big deal, right? And then the ones over here that outsert, it's still the same. They need to check every time anyway. It's not like I can tell them, oh, wait until there is 5 asteroids and then enable or something like that. They need to check all the time and make sure this is always empty, because you can only have one. If you try to, because the stack size is 1 for each one of these, once there's one in there, the next craft cannot finish. So for this case, it's actually fine, and I'd say even for this case, it's actually fine. Now here, because I'm mixing the 2 asteroids, when there are asteroids coming through, I guess I'll use an example. Okay, so for example here, I'm not using the metallic ones, but I am using the carbonic ones, which means that I'm getting too many carbonic asteroids, but not enough metallic. Now they're all being used. But if, for example, this one doesn't have enough, I don't have metallic asteroids for this one to work, this guy will activate even if there's just a carbonic asteroid passing through. So in this case, it's a bit worse, but again, I'd say it's not that big of a deal. These ones are also like fully full, so it's about as perfect as can be. These ones are in the same case are these ones, so, you know, a bit of an issue because they're not fully full all the time, but not that big of a deal. Here what I did is, these ones seem to work almost all the time, and there's also a lot of crap happening, but here sometimes I don't have enough, so I just started reading the belt and then only enabling them when there is something to pick up, just for these 4 inserters over here. These ones are also full all the time, so nothing to do here. Now, here's where it gets kind of tricky. So these ones I have actually clocked. And there is a clock over here. It's one of the tricky clocks where it does fractional clocking. But basically they enable, so you see this takes 1.125 actually. 1.125. So it's based on clocking them around this timing, right? So they enable, you know, exactly when they finish, you get another one in, it's easier with the last one. Like that. Now, for these ones, again, it doesn't matter that much, because it's again one asteroid. So even if they activate, they're basically the same case as over here, right? That's not that big of a deal. Although in this case, I do output the asteroids on the same belt. So it's a bit worse, because, right? In this case, I was outputting the asteroids onto another belt, which means if I was outputting on the same belt, then these ones would activate while the asteroids are passing through. But they aren't oxide, so they're not useful to them. So it's a bit more useful in this case, because these ones output here. This is the case where the clocking made the most sense. Because these ones will activate also while I'm moving out the iron ore. So now they're being active less frequently. Now when it comes to these ones, they activate every time a craft finishes, and they do need to activate every time the the crusher finishes a craft, because they have to output stuff. So them being without any kind of clock is pretty darn perfect. These ones, I can't. The ones outserting the chunks, I can't really clock them because I want them to check all the time whether there's an asteroid in here. So I can't say. I mean, I guess I could read this and be, oh, if there is one in here, then activate. But isn't it doing the same? I'd have to do it for each crusher. So it's kind of doing the same thing on its own, but it's with internal game logic rather than through the circuitry system. I'm gonna assume that's faster. So that kind of takes care of all the possible cases. These ones I've also... So yeah, I've basically clocked all the inserters over here that insert the asteroids, also the ones here, and the ones here. It's gonna make a bit of a difference, but again, it's not the biggest deal. A cool thing you can do for deleting some of them, but not the legendary, is this thing. So you can space them out like that and then have one belt instead of... Because initially I had another belt like that, and I'm like, wait, what? I'm stupid, just do this. And you can need to do it either way. You can also... Yeah, you can have the belt, the underground here and the belt over here, going like that. You can also flip these around so that, yeah, you can. So you have quite a bit of freedom in how to get this underground through. What else? I did can turrets, so I'm pretty sure that's better than lasers for UPS. For the... Okay, so over here, I found that the best way to do this was based on how many legendary asteroids I have saved up. Now this 50 number is basically reading this belt, and if I have over 50 legendary asteroids over here, then I stop the ship on Novice. Now why did I choose 50? It's because if it goes much higher than that, then these ones cannot outsert the legendary asteroids, so these ones get stuck. So basically I want the number as high as possible without blocking these ones. And I also have, this is again fractional pausing because I don't want it to go there for one tick and then, you know, stop on Novice and then leave again instantly. So it's waiting. You can set this to 1 second or something, doesn't matter that much. Just to make sure that it drops the, you know, the science if it needs it. Next thing I did is these ones they're not clocked, they just, you know, if I have less than 50k, insert, because again, the more stuff you have, the more costly it is to insert and outsert. So keeping it to 50 is fine. How do I find 50? I guess that's also somewhat important to talk about. So this travels back and forth. It's 15,000 kilometers back and forth, right? So 30,000 is our round trip. Now the speed goes from 470 up to 490 when it's past this point. Let's just speed it up. There you go, 490. I'm gonna assume 450 just to be on the safe side. So it takes 66 seconds between its round trip. Also, when you drop the cargo pods, they take 20 seconds to arrive on Novice. So this is how many seconds is the maximum from going empty to dropping some science. And I wanted 640 per second, so it's 55,000. Now, the reason, I guess I could increase this to 55,000, in case it confuses people, but anyway, 50k is fine. But what that means is, on Novice, I have simulated here, through this clocking, that I'm actually using up 640 per second. So this is kind of simulating the labs. I set this to 50, but probably even at 56k or whatever the number was, 55 point something, this would mean that I never run out. And we can speed this up, so you can see. I can also set this to 56, and it's probably gonna be fine. But just to have a bit of an extra buffer, I set it a bit higher. And this is when the ship stops at Novice for a while. That's when it got full of legendary asteroids. There you go. So that's how you find out roughly what you need to set it at. We can also see when it gets stuck. You'll just see a bunch of legendary asteroids gathering up here. And I guess it can take a while. You can also see these are barely doing anything. Still. And I think in practice, you can easily see it over here. Roughly every half an hour it kind of does this thing where it stops. It's been a while since it's done it now, but it takes roughly half an hour in between these stops. Oh, come on. Yep, there we go. And now it stops at Novice. You can see they're still gathering. This is how it all often happens. And it looks like it set the number to quite a bit higher, maybe 100 or something, but now it happens again. I don't know why it's bursty like that, but that's what I found to be best. I also don't have any other condition really here. It's just stop if I have too many asteroids and wait on Novice a little bit. Let's see, beside that, other minor things. This is what I did to fill up a belt. If you remember, I got 32 metallic per second, so having one inserter wasn't enough because one, the belt only on one side can only do 30 per second, so I needed an extra one to insert on both sides of the belt. The carbonic and oxide go like that, and then, I mean, it doesn't matter what you do afterwards, you can do your own thing. These guys are clocked. The clock is has a much higher, what is it called? A much lower frequency than the Prometheum chip. It's every 30 ticks. It's active for 1 tick, 30 ticks inactive. And what else? I also have this little system here, which is these red wires. Basically, they read the contents and they set the filters. And basically, if I have less than 15 of any asteroid, then the filters are active. And this 15 comes from here. 15, 15, 15. Now, what I found is in practice, I can also pass the clock signal through this. So that was a bit less combinators. For the ammo, I also dumped some ice over here, just because it's the easiest way to get rid of it. I've also added this back in my actual game. Another thing you can do is, if you don't need the power, use less generators. Like instead, usually people would do 4 or even more here, but I don't need it, so they just add the update time. Just use as many as you need. What else is there? I also made this to disable when they have above 1.5k. If you have above 1.5k in the output, you cannot. A craft cannot finish. A craft can continue, so this actually doesn't do its max throughput, but it cannot empty. So they do less than their theoretical max throughput, but I don't need it anyway, so this is a nice way for them to be disabled and not take up UPS when I'm on novice. This is a simple kind of loop with using this, and then these ones, yeah, these ones have priority over this inserter, so the ice from this one will be used first. So since I also want to block this for to be disabled so they don't take any update time when they're on novice, and I'm reading contents anyway, then I can go to this one and set this to anything below 5 in order to only insert when either of these are below 5 and Y5, because the automate insertion limit here is 5. Now, this won't work initially, but once you start it, then it's fine. So when the belt here is first fed, you need to disable this and re-enable it, and then it will work fine. Just briefly until it inserts both of them, so that the signals are not, you know, because on a 0 signal, this doesn't do anything. Here it's much simpler because it's only one item, so it's below 40, again the insertion limit, because I also want to disable this machine, so if I want to do that anyway, might as well do something for this one. Finally, over here, again, finding out what's optimal setup is here for the belts. You know, just doing this kind of very minor but still like somewhat significant optimizations when it comes to clocking, or, you know, what are you gonna do with these inserters? What are you gonna do with the belt? What's the best way to pick up items and how to circuit these inserters? This will be something I investigate next when I do all the novice sciences and redesign. But I can talk about a few things now. If you design the belts like this, so that except for the first one on each lane, this one doesn't need anything special. But if you have them like this, or like that, then these will never get blocked, so they will always do 12 ticks per swing. The last one, this is one way you can use one inserter in order to fit both sides of the belt. And yeah, to keep the belts equal. When it comes to these ones picking up, if you want them to pick up again in 12 ticks, no more, you need to, I think you need to do it from a full belt like that, if you have a different item on top and on the bottom. Here I also, one thing I do know, which I think wasn't the case in vanilla, now in Space Age, it's actually better to have both sides of the belt full. If you're doing one item, it's better to have both lanes full, and these, so that they can pick up from both lanes instead of only one. In vanilla, it used to be that having only one of the two lanes was better for UPS, or at least that's what most people say. I never actually mega based in vanilla, so I don't know. But now this is better, and the reason I think it's better is because the stack inserter only needs to pick up 4 items. So these 4 items, if you have both sides of the belt full, they're already available to the inserter. Like, you can pick up one after another every tick. Whereas before, you had the bulk inserter, and it was a single item on... Yeah, so the bulk inserter only had 4 items available to it, and plus another 4, I guess, if it was on both sides. So no matter what, it had to wait for another 4 items. Plus, it couldn't rotate that fast, so it spent a long more time, and it's possible... Oh, you also had the blue belt, sorry. You also only had blue belt. So it took a lot longer, and maybe what happened is the rotation from here to here, or, you know, picking up from both sides, maybe it was slower than just waiting for items to come through on the belt. I'm not sure what caused it, but every test I've ever done in Space Age with stack inserters, having both sides of the belt full, if it's one item you want to pick up, and not like here where I need 2 items, is better for stack inserters. So that's one thing I can pretty confidently say at this point. For the rest, I'm not sure, but doing them the way I have here, it at least keeps it consistent, 12 ticks per swing. So now, what I've done here is, you read this machine, if it's above 16, I activate the outserters for the signs. If the iron plate is below 14, which you can see here, 14 is the insertion limit, then I activate these ones, for the iron plates, obviously. And then if either of these two is below 7, which again is the insertion limit, then I activate the ones in the bottom. Okay. Finally, let's talk about the electric furnaces. These ones don't need any kind of wiring because I overproduce iron plates, so whenever they're active, they're just picking up, and this one always has enough for them to pick up. So they're either inactive waiting here at the belt, or they're picking up. Now these ones, I couldn't figure out a way to lock them really well. So instead, it's only 3 furnaces anyway, so I connected this furnace to each one. I have this less than 42, which... oh yeah, right here I need to change it technically for this one, but it doesn't matter. But these ones should be 42. The insertion limit is 42, so this one is 42. Yeah, here I deleted one of the beacons because it couldn't fit. I forgot about that. Okay, so the insertion limit is 42. This will easily go up to 100. The reason I make it stop, if it's a... I don't want to go above 90, because what can happen is that these sometimes will insert... I don't remember exactly, I actually forgot exactly what happened, but there was some slight problem with going all the way to the max. I think what happened is it would try to insert sometimes, but then it went all the way to the max, so because the output got full, it would stop halfway through. So it would pick up, let's say, 8 out of the 16 iron ore, and then it would just stop. So I didn't like that, enabling and then stopping. But if you set this to 90, then this will always insert. I think I can set it as a lot higher, but 90 is more than fine. I think I set it to like 96 or 97 or something. Because you see I set it to 90, but actually it got to 91 now. I think sometimes I can get to 92 or 93. So I'm not sure, but I guess 91 makes sense, never mind. Yeah, I could probably set this to 98 for... possibly. Oh, what? And this will probably work. I mean, it got to 100 now, so... I don't know if you saw it got to 100 briefly, so... Anyway, yeah, that's the reason, so that this, if it starts picking up, it will finish picking up and drop it off. Anything else? I have here 21 hatches. Why is it 21? Because 21 times 2,000 science packs, that's 42,000 science packs. And if you remember again, we did 30,000 kilometers divided by 450, 66 times 640, 42,000 roughly. Obviously, I'm going a bit faster. Yeah. So with 21 hatches, I should be able to, you know, cargo pod faster than these can produce. I don't need any more. And besides, like I said, I want to block this and not go that high because the UPS is an issue. This whole build does take up quite a bit of power, surprisingly, which surprised me. So one reactor wasn't enough, so that's why I put a second one. I also block this because it is a fluid, so it doesn't disable automatically. I don't know if that this is worth it, but yeah. These ones will also activate all the time. So with the clock that I've clocked these ones, I've also clocked these two. Oh my god, I'm 1 hour 10 minutes in, but I've gone into very much detail for this one, and most of the basics were done within 30 minutes. I think I've pretty much covered literally everything. Yeah, I don't think there's anything left, anything else left to talk about. I haven't done any kind of wiring here, but these are mainly inactive, and these ones, I mean, what is there to talk about? I don't even know what I would do with these. Honestly, the thing that's... Oh, I guess one last thing to say is that, yeah, I originally put these ones over here, but if I were to do it again, they would actually with these, or with the metallic ones actually, I would have ideally put this down here, because it actually fits quite nicely. Because it was really annoying having this mist of iron ore and ice flying in my face when I was trying to mess around here. I guess it has its own flair now. So aside from the spaghetti being a bit ugly, there's not that much I would change about the ship. I guess one thing I would like ideally is to have the correct amount of these and these, and make the spaghetti a bit nicer looking, and yeah, just have a bit more structure. I guess one thing I would recommend, if you do design this ship, I would say all of these and all of these, design them first on the ground, make them as compact and probably squarish as possible. So, like in other words, kind of take these, put it on the ground, but you know, do the proper design on the ground first, make it as small as possible, make sure it works, and then take it, move it up, put it down first, and then design the rest around it. I think if I went with that, that would have been better, but I kind of designed the rest first, mostly anyway, and then I tried to place this down, because I thought, well, I'll just place them somewhere and see what's convenient. Now, the only problem with these recipes is that you need empty space to drop stuff out of. But if I place it down here, I could have actually deleted this space platform and deleted it like that, which I didn't think initially. I think that pretty much covers everything, even some small details. Yeah, I think that's it. I will do it. Longer video than I planned, and Prometheum was actually shorter than I planned. There were a few things that I forgot to mention about Prometheum, which of course I did, because there's a lot to talk about. But yeah, I might do an addendum video for that. But anyway, yeah, legendary white science with some extra stuff to improve efficiency and while keeping UPS more than acceptable. As you see, most of the inserters are inactive most of the time, by the way, so yeah, not too bad. 0.2 milliseconds. Thanks for watching. The next video will take a while because, I mean, I need to do a lot of testing. I can give you a bit of an idea. So, for example, here's a red science in one way. Oh, wait, what did I do? Why do I still have this? Anyway, here's red science in one way, here's another way. And the difference is, here I have at the end what I showed you before, how to fill up how to fully fill up the belt from one insert on both sides. And here I have an extra, here I have 10 instead of 9. But now what I have is 4 of them do the thing normally. The first one doesn't need anything special, but the next 3 have this little side build. But then I have an extra side build at the last one. So now the one lane is done. And then you continue like that, and then again the next 4 side load. And both of them get me a full belt, but I'm like, which one is faster UPS wise? And I couldn't figure it out. I ran into some fairly big issues trying to figure this out. because it's one less machine here. Sorry, here, but I'm doing this splittering and stuff. Yeah. And also there were some other issues I ran into, but anyway, this is getting off hand. But I need to test this. I need to also test, you know, is this the best for this one, or is this better even if it takes longer to pick up? Or is it here? Because this is an underground exit, this is a full thing, this is a underground entrance. Minor things like that. Same thing here. Is this actually worth it, or should I just do that? And maybe it's fine if I do that. Oh, I need to do it all the way. You know, maybe it's fine if it's like that, even if they sometimes get stuck here. So there's a lot of testing around these things with the belts and how to do this shit. And I don't know if I can actually come up with generic tests or specifically test every single build, various different ways to do it. Like specifically test for red signs with 12 beacons, and yeah, ideally I'm hoping I can find some generic tests so I can find some general rules of what's ideal. Because yeah, if I need to test every single one on its own, it's a pain in the ass. It's much nicer to have a general rule and be like, okay, this works in all cases. You know, what's the best way to outsert? What's the best way to insert from two sides? Two different items on each lane, or one item on both lanes. Yeah. So a lot of that, plus designing all of the novice sciences and figuring out what kind of quality I should do. There are 3 contenders in my mind right now. There is common, uncommon, and uncommon plus for the novice sciences, and probably for metallurgic. And uncommon plus means I basically recycle only the common into oblivion, but I keep anything above. So if I get rare, I don't delete it, and if I get uncommon, I don't, you know, recycle it again to go to rare or higher. I think those are the 3 possible choices for these ones, and metallurgic. I may do 2 videos. I may do, if I can find some generic tests, which basically apply to all of these sciences and metallurgic and maybe electromagnetic and maybe cryogenic, because there's kind of general tests about input outputs onto an assembly machine or some other machine and how to clock them properly and all that. What to do with the belts. So if I can figure out some generic stuff that work really well, I may do a video on that, because then those can be principles that anyone can use, and then do specific videos on the quality for each of the sciences and the actual builds. So yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, it's yeah, that's it. Okay. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one. Okay, one last thing I forgot. I added this condition on novice. The reason is, okay, I have this condition to stop when there are too many asteroids. But something that could happen is if I'm not consuming the ice that comes through here or the carbon, it could have gotten stuck. The ship could have gotten stuck going back and forth while not consuming this. And instead of reading another belt, the easiest solution was just to stop it if I'm not dropping science packs. Because if I'm not consuming the space science packs, then I'm not consuming this belt. So, you know, if this belt got full because I'm not consuming space science packs, because let's say I'm doing mining productivity, then it was possible to have the ship flying back and forth, but everything here was stalled, so I was just killing asteroids but doing nothing. And why was it stalled? Because this belt is stalled, so that meant these ones were stalled, these ones were stalled. So, you know, if anything before legendary gets stalled, then everything else will get stalled eventually. So that's what this was trying to address.